Hello, everyone. This is Phil Golfi with REMAX, the Golfi team. Welcome to the Golfi Real Estate Show with host Stephanie Vivier.
Hello, Phil. So great to have you back on the show. How are you?
I am doing well. Shoveled out of my driveway this morning. It has been a absolutely, crazy snowy week. Last year, I remember I was talking to some, Canadian, one of my best clients, he owns a Canadian Tire, and he couldn't sell a shovel. He had overstock of snow blowers, overstock of salt, and this year he can't keep up. So everyone's out this morning shoveling out and getting out of their driveways, and I'm just happy to make it into the studio and talk to you and talk about real estate. So I'm lucky I'm here. I'm all cozied up into a warm studio with my headset on and sitting in front of a microphone, and hopefully we can entertain some people listening at home today. But yeah, I mean, if there's one thing, snow alone could be enough to make someone thinking about moving, right? Like, there is so much snow lying around right now that, especially in the older streets of Hamilton and those highly densely populated areas, there's just nowhere to go, right? Like, if you're on a street right now and there's street parking, or if you don't even have a parking spot, we've gotten so much snow that it's not just a push it around and shovel it into the corner, but it's like you need a dump truck and to carry it away, because it is out of control right now. It's and then on top of that, you get into the neighbor wars, right? Like, there's always the stories that come out of two neighbors that just get in a fight because of where the snow's going. It's like, you have the one guy with the snow blower who's blowing the snow over to the other neighbor's property, and you have the other guy who's shoveling it. Like, it's crazy times. But how are things going on with you?
It's interesting because you kind of know where you stand with your neighbors, because if you've got a sidewalk in front of your house like I do, it's like the guy with the snow blower, wherever he stops, if he stops at your house, you have problems with him. Like, that's how you know you have beef, right? He'll kind of keep going along the road with all the neighbors that he likes, but if he doesn't blow the snow out in front of your house, it's like, uh-oh, I better get this guy a basket of cookies ASAP so he can just keep running.
Make sure you're nice to the guy with a snowblower, because it's days like this where you need him on your side, and you need him or her on your side, or you need them on your team to help you out. But and then on top of that, we get to see all our little entrepreneurs that are running around with their parents' shovel and going driveway to driveway and helping their elderly neighbors and offering shoveling driveways for a few bucks. So that's always fun to see. It takes me back to my days when my dad used to always motivate me. He's like, go take care of their driveway and see if you can shovel some driveways and make some money today. And that was those were some of my snow days growing up. But it's always fun. It's a good snow day. It's you cuddle up and throw a fire on and throw a couple movies on, and it's a lot of fun. So I mean, for me, I'm looking forward to that. I'm a big hockey fan, so it's the first time in a while where we got to see this best on best hockey tournament. It's the Four Nations Cup, so it's Canada against the USA tonight. So they just beat Sweden earlier this week, so I'm looking forward to that, and that's what I'll be doing tonight. So there's no problems there, but yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, the snow really gets you in the mood for hockey, that's for sure.
That's right. So where do you want to go?
Yeah, let's get into it. So interesting, like, when I see all the snow and I know that we're going to be chatting, I'm like, well, how does this affect the real estate market? Because certainly, houses are still for sale. People still want their houses viewed. Do people still want to come out and see houses when we get weather like we've had this week?
Yeah, there's two types of people, right? Like, there's the people where if there's, I call them the Florida drivers. If there's a little bit of snow on the ground, it's they're not going anywhere. And then there's the people who own the big trucks with the mud tires and the all-wheel drive, and they wouldn't even flinch at not going to see a home. So we it depends. I know for me, I've been showing properties and going to see properties all week. One of the more difficult things is photography. So in media. So when you're starting to market a listing and you get a big snowfall, the house is hard to detail and hard to show when when there's snow everywhere, right? It's you don't really get a good idea of what it looks like when it's snow covered. So, for things like that, we would delay photos in some cases, or in other cases we would still go ahead, take the photos, put the property up for sale, start marketing it, and then when the when the snow clears, or it's a little bit more visible, we would go back and take new photos of the exterior. So it depends that way. But in terms of like going to look at properties, it's a great time to go see properties. You get an understanding of parking situations and neighborhoods and that sort of thing. But it depends, right? I always say, if you're in a little Chevrolet Cruze or a little Mazda 3 or one of those smaller little cars, I think it's just, stay home and, don't put your life at risk or anyone else at risk. But there's, we see the people with the big rigs and the trucks and who can get around pretty easily. And I know for myself, part of selling real estate is I need a reliable and dependable car. So, I drive a big SUV, and the reason I have it is for weeks like this to be able to get around and in the snow. And we go everywhere, right? Like we're on the backcountry road selling farm properties, and then we're down in the city selling condos. So we got to be accessible. And I always say, the best ability is availability in this business. And if we're not able to get out to a property and see a potential seller or bring a potential buyer to a property, then we're not able to do our job. But yeah, we're still out working. I mean, we love it. It's part of the business, right?
Well, this is the first year I've had snow tires, and it's certainly been a great year to have that investment. And you're right, Phil, about there being, those two kinds of people. And I know the Golfi team services all kinds of people, right? You want to stay home, that's fine. We'll still help you out. If you want to come out, we can help you there too.
Yeah.
What's happening in real estate? This has been a really crazy news time, right? We're hearing about tariffs, and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. So how is this all shaking out right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're, it's just, there's a lot of unpredictability going on. It felt like we went through this crazy COVID market where it was like, nobody knew what was going to happen. We had people, offloading their properties, 2021 right away. And then we went through this 2021 market and this 2022 market, which, we saw interest rates go so low, and we saw property prices appreciate so much and so fast, so quickly. And then it felt like we got back to this, we called it a traditional, more of a balanced, buyer-seller market where properties were, sitting on the market for, 30 to 60 days. And it wasn't this fast and furious appreciating market. And we were in this, interest rates were falling, and they still continue to fall. And then boom, Trump gets elected, and he's like, okay, you guys think you're comfortable and cozy up there in Canada, and you're finally back to normal, and then here's a 25% tariff, right? And the biggest thing is, it's going to affect the tariffs are going to affect us, right? For sure, they're going to affect certain industries. But I think what it comes with more than anything is the way news travels today. It's so fast and so quick, and it's either really, 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 really good or really, really, really bad. And anything in the gray area, is if it's just okay, well, that doesn't really make it onto your timeline because it's just it's not clickbaity enough. It's not. Doesn't have that high octane type of feel to it. It's not grabbing headlines, right? Nobody reads a headline where it just says, oh yeah, everything's normal, it's just okay. So we along with the tariffs, it just creates this anxiety of what's going to happen next. And I think that leads into households, and it leads into real estate. It leads into people's decisions, of course, right? If somebody's job is going to be dramatically and drastically affected, or someone's income is going to be, affected by this, well, they're gonna look to their house. And they're gonna say, well, can I still afford my house? And if the answer is no, then it's going to go up for sale, and they're going to find somewhere more affordable. And that's one of the things. If some of the calls that we're getting is if we're having these conversations, because in the event that something does happen to their job, they're able to act quickly and fast to ensure that they're able to take care of their family and either move on from the house or restructure a mortgage or get creative in that type of way. So in terms of the impact currently right now on the market, we're not directly seeing it. However, we're seeing it in terms of the conversations and the types of conversations that we are having on a day-to-day basis. And the scary thing is it hits pretty close to home, right? I read today that Hamilton ranked 8th out of 41 cities based on the importance of its steel industry. So, the tariffs on those types of things is gonna affect our local market. We see people from all over Niagara, from all over Hamilton that commute into the city to be able to, to work in these factories and produce the steel. There are more than 28,000 manufacturing jobs in Hamilton, with nearly 9,000 linked to steel and metal industries. And so we think about them, how it directly affects those jobs. But, if we lose half those jobs or a quarter, it's those people aren't grabbing their coffee on the morning to work. They're not going out for lunch. They're not going to the grocery store. Like the ripple effect on each and every job to the surrounding area and the surrounding businesses is so dramatic that everyone's going to feel the effect of these tariffs. Now, my personal opinion is I don't think they're going to last. I think he's just using it as an intimidation factor to get what he wants and how he wants it. And I think, these tariffs are going to affect them just as much as they're going to affect us. They obviously have a way bigger economy. There's going to be pain felt on their side too. So I think there's going to be pressure on both sides. But I just, no one knows what the end game or the end goal is, and how long it's going to last. So it's scary times for some of the local markets and some of the local industries.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update there. Yeah, I mean, it certainly is. And who knows what it's going to be. We do have a little bit of a few weeks before the steel and aluminum tariffs take hold. And in that time, there's another deadline for tariffs. So we continue to follow that story. But meanwhile, you mentioned the anxiety that the people are feeling. And it looks like Toronto is actually seeing it in the market already. And in the past, you and Rob have spoken about how, Toronto is sort of like the canary in the coal mine. Whatever's happening there then starts to ripple out, closer to us in the Hamilton and then the Niagara regions.
Yeah, we always use it like we always say, it's the drive until you can afford, and it's always like when we see the markets start to change and start to evolve, and whether it's picking up or going downward, Toronto's always the fastest to react to any market, and all the surrounding areas follow accordingly. So when we can hear the market or we see the market stats in Toronto start to pick up, we know that we're a couple of weeks away, and then it goes through Hamilton, Burlington, and those hubs in those areas, and then down through Niagara, and that's just something that we've seen over the years in terms of comparing and contrasting each market. But what we're seeing right now in Toronto is the sellers are there. Like, the inventory has jumped significantly and dramatically. And the reason being is everyone last year that wanted to sell, right? That wanted to sell, they came up on the market, and maybe they didn't get the number that they wanted, but they still want to sell. So these are the sellers that are able to hold out for a certain value. They don't have this significant pressure to get out of their house, but obviously there's a desire to sell. Those people have come back up again this year, okay? Combined with that, you have an entire new selling party or population that are taking advantage, and we always talk about it. The best months to sell are February, March, and April. Get up early. Those are, that's your best opportunity to sell for the most amount of money. And we've seen that in a traditional real estate market ever since I've been in the business. That's always been the case. February, March, and April is your best opportunity to get the most amount of money for your house. So everyone's coming up at once. We have last year's expired listings, last year's canceled listings that are coming back up to the market, combined with this whole new selling population or sellers, and we're just not seeing right now the buyers absorb that inventory. So we're raising like in double digit inventory, like listings have ballooned. And I'm just reading a stat here. Listings are up 70% year over year. So from January 2024 to January 2025, listings have increased 70%, which is significant. Now, if the buyers aren't there to absorb these amount of listings, there's only one thing that can happen. The most desperate sellers are going to drop their price to sell first, and that's what's going to happen. So we're not going to, everyone thinks, interest rates are coming down, prices are going to go back up. But if the buyers aren't there to absorb the inventory, prices are not going anywhere, because people are going to start, like I said, making price improvements on their listings to be able to produce a sale. And if you're a buyer, right, maybe you're a first-time home buyer, maybe you're somebody that lives in a condo, like and is looking to move up to a townhouse or move up to a detached home, you have the ability to be super aggressive and super negotiable in this market, and we're starting to see that, through and through. If you're looking to make a move and you're a buyer, be aggressive, and you have to go try and find the pain points of sellers and be negotiable and like I said, be aggressive. We're seeing properties sell for hundreds and thousands of dollars below asking. I'm talking, properties upwards of the, $900 to $1 million, that are being sold at significant price reduction, like in comparison to the asking price. So that's what's going on right now. We haven't seen this, and that's what's going on in Toronto. But the thing to make note is a lot of it is condo inventory. A lot of the inventory that's coming up is condos. So these numbers are significantly, if you were to take the condos out of it, the numbers would be different. But the numbers are due significantly to the condo market.
All right. Well, Phil Golfi is here with us on the Golfi Real Estate Show. You can always get a hold of the Golfi team on their website, robgolfi.com. That's GOLFI.com. Phil is sticking around. We've got more with the Golfi Real Estate Show next here on News Talk 610 CKTB. Welcome back to the Golfi Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Steph Vivier. Oh, sorry.
Now that I'm actually sitting back here, I'm going to just start the new segment fresh. So
okay.
Do a bunch of editing.
Yeah, sure. Let me know.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Welcome back to the Golfi Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Steph Vivier. Phil Golfi with the REMAX Golfi team with us today. We got into it a little deep, just like the snow we've gotten this week when it comes to the real estate market. And there is a lot more to get into. All right, tariffs. We talked a little bit about it in the first half of Phil, but also interest rates. And there are certain other uncertainties, and it's all made for a slow start for the 2025 Niagara real estate market.
Yeah, I mean, interest rates have been such a hot topic for us, and we talked about it in the earlier segment where we have so many mortgages renewing this year where I believe there's 60% of all mortgages are renewing this year, which I have one of my own, and I'm on a 2.34 interest rate right now on one of my properties. This interest rate is going to jump to 5.25, if not around 5. That's going to be a significant adjustment in terms of the monthly payment for me. And a lot of people are going through similar scenarios with their own properties. So we're going to see people get creative where they're going to re-amortize their mortgage up to a 30-year am to ensure that it's a more affordable payment, so they can carry the property at a cheaper monthly payment. But we're also, if you're not able to get approved for that payment, we're going to see a lot of people renew at significantly higher interest rates, and their payments are going to jump. If they're not able to afford that, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to have to sell. Now, there's a lot of people, first-time home buyers, and that sat on the sidelines, and we always use the term, there's a lot of people that sat on the sidelines waiting to get into the market, waiting for rates to fall, and waiting for housing prices to fall. We're starting to see the inventory jump in Toronto, mostly in the condo market, but we're starting to see the inventory jump, in our local markets as well. Not as much as Toronto, but the inventory is climbing. And if there's first-time home buyers that are still waiting on the sidelines, waiting for the interest rates to come down, it poses a good opportunity if they have that desire and that the home ownership desire to get into the market, where they're going to come out and start looking. So we're starting to see that a little bit more. We've seen a lot of people jump to more affordable parts of Niagara, where they're still looking at the Wellands and the Thorold's and trying to find these little pockets where there's first time, where it's easier to get into the market for a more affordable price to achieve home ownership. So that's what's going on in Niagara right now. We see the luxury market, like in Niagara, taking a beating. There's not a lot of sales that are over that $1.5 million mark, but it's that the big transactions numbers are in that $500,000 to $800,000 mark, and that's what we see, is where we see first-time home buyers getting into the market, which is exciting for them.
Okay. Well, that is exciting. I guess, there's always opportunity, right, Phil? That's what, we hear over and over. No matter how much uncertainty there's a sector of a person that this is just the right time, really, to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I know for myself, when I was looking at my first home, I was following the market and because I was in it, but I was just so excited to go get my first home and go live by myself and have my own space. And the way I looked at it is you can pay attention to the small little market cycles and, real estate's down and real estate's up. And we go through all these crazy market cycles. And there's, like I said before, there's so much news, and you will always find a reason not to buy. Like you will always find a reason. And if you're just looking for every single reason not to get into the market or not to buy, you're never going to buy a house. But if you stretch out the market cycles and you look at it from a family standpoint, or from or if you just zoom out on every graph you're looking at, or zoom out on the interest rates, you're going to see that real estate's going to be one of the best investments you can make. It's a place that you're going to grow and raise your family, and if you have one, it's a forced savings account, and any appreciation that you make on your property is going to be tax free. So there's so many positives to owning real estate. There's so many positives to owning your first home, but you gotta be financially prepared, financially committed and disciplined, and you gotta be ready, because there'd be nothing worse than trying to achieve this home ownership, and all of a sudden you're into it, and you look around, you say, well, it's not as good as I thought. And then combined with that, I have a leaky roof and a leaky basement, and I'm putting money into this house, and it's not giving me that fulfillment that I was looking for and that I wanted. So it's there's a lot of amazing opportunities out there, even today, right now. Like I said before, there's people are getting deals and buying houses significantly under the asking price, and getting into the market. And combined with that, we're seeing a lot of the first-time home buyers who are starting to come out and kind of sniff around and look around to see if they can get into something. So it's going to be, I always, coming into this year, I always said the first-time home buyers are going to be back, the investors are going to be back, that $500 to $800 price point is going to be extremely hot. And Niagara is going to be a desirable place to live for a lot of people, just due to the affordability factors in comparison to a lot of the other markets around southern Ontario.
All right, Phil, let's now go to a group of people that are looking to get out of the market, and that would be some of the snowbirds that have properties in Florida. The dollar is not in our favor right now, and there's been, as we've talked about, all kinds of uncertainty as to how that will go. If tariffs happen, if their inflation in the States goes up and our interest rates come down, all that kind of stuff will just make the dollar worse. So many snowbirds are scrambling to sell their homes, and I've heard it's pretty difficult to do. It's not an easy time to do that in Florida.
Yeah, there's so many, factors to this. Number one is there's a lot of people who own condo buildings down there. There was a building that had collapsed. I forget the name of the building, but it was about 5 years ago. And one of the main reasons was it was the construction was just decaying and they weren't following the rules and regulations and building code, and it wasn't updated properly. And now if you own a condo in Florida, you are being hit with these assessments of $80,000 to $100,000 to ensure that the structure and condo is being upkept. And that's $80,000 to $100,000 in US dollars. So that's a significant factor. The dollar is killing us, right? Like, to go down there and even to go, buy groceries or go out for dinners or what have you, it's a killer. But then you look at it and you say, well, if I sell my property, I'm making 45 points on the dollar the other way because I'm selling in US dollars. So there's those opportunities there. We saw a significant Canadian population go into the States when the dollar was par in the 2008 recession and buy properties down there. Those people have not only the properties they bought at pennies on the dollar, but now they're able to make 45 points just off the dollar alone, combined with whatever appreciation that they made on the property. So as much as people are selling, they've made done exceptionally well on an investment for a vacation property. But if you look at it, I think the demographic of people that are going to Florida, it's costing them too much. They see that they have all this equity built up in a property. They're able to make 45 points. When you look at that and you say, okay, well, if I sell, I can go put that into an investment account, and that investment account is going to pay for my travel for the rest of my life, and I can go anywhere I want, right? I don't, I'm not necessarily married to going to the same spot every year. I can go to Mexico, I can go to Europe, I can go to, wherever. And now I have this nice investment account that's paying me to go, and I'm able to afford the travel that way. So we're just seeing a little bit of change in dynamic. And then I think, we've had two significant hurricanes, which were described as 100-year storms in a very short period of time. It's do you really want to be exposed to those types of weather conditions and climate change? And what if those types of storms become, more normal than not, and they're happening every 10 years or every, 20 years. And it kind of exposes you a little bit more to those types of, the weather conditions, and in terms of your investment's protected in a high interest savings account in comparison to a property that can get all of a sudden you're underwater and having to
literally blown away.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay. And so how does that work? Like, if I own a property in Florida and I live here, I work with realtors down there, right? Yeah. So we have lots of partners. There's a few realtors who will go back and forth and work on both things, but we do have, there's a lot of people that reach out to us and say, hey, we're looking at buying a place in Florida. We want you to come down and help us. But we're, me personally, I'm not licensed down there yet, but we do have just from, our REMAX network and affiliations like that, we do have incredible, referral partners that we work with to be able to help, different buyers and sellers in Florida for sure. Okay, that's good to know, because you want to be able to, work with someone you trust, and you did hear Phil go yet, so maybe that's in the works.
I would love that. I love Florida. My girlfriend's family has a place down there, so we go down there a lot. And then a few of my friends have places down there, so I'm always puddle jumping and going back and forth to Florida. And it's a close flight. The climate's amazing. The golf is good. The courses are awesome, and the community's great. So I completely understand why people want to own a vacation property there. It's incredible. It's a great lifestyle. But you know, in terms of an investment right now, it might not be the you know the most attractive. And with where the dollar's at, it's like hard to go out for dinner, and you go buy and then you're trying to save money, and you go buy groceries, and you look at your grocery bill, and you're spending $1,000 at the grocery store. So it's a difficult time of period to get away and enjoy that Florida life.
I got to ask you, we are in the middle of this Ontario election, and I'm talking to a lot of the candidates, and of course we'll probably have a federal election coming up later this year, and like affordability is one of the things that keeps coming up, and housing, of course, right? You know, there's different promises and different platforms that are being made, and I'm just wondering if you've heard anything that you really like from any of the either provincial or federal candidates. Like I know Chrystia Freeland talked about getting rid of the HST for new home buyers. You know, Pierre Poilievre has talked about getting rid of HST for any homes under $1 million. You know, I wonder if there's anything there that you're liking from the politicians that are really going to help in the real estate world.
Yeah, great question. Both of those would be significant and would help a ton in terms of new home buyers getting into the market. But I think I like those ones, but I think, you know, to really make a difference is we got to look at the red tape around building. We have, you know, a lot of investment, a lot of opportunities for builders that want to grow, that want to develop communities, that are looking to build more homes. And the problem is the amount of red tape to bring a piece of property or land from raw to build is so significant. And then combined with the development charges that are so high in Niagara Falls right now, a development charge is upwards of $100,000 or close to $100,000 per unit. So if you're going to go buy a lot right now, and you're going to say I want to buy a lot and I want to build a house, whether you're a builder or an end user, you're paying $100,000 to a municipality just on a development charge basis. That charge is getting passed to the consumer if you're a builder. So we see these big communities and it's like, oh, housing's so expensive. Why is it so expensive? It's because the amount of red tape and the charges that these developers and builders are charged just get passed to the consumer. So there has to be a way that we can figure out in terms of to remove some of the red tape around building and development in these communities, combined with the amount of development charges that are being charged to these builders and developers. It's like, I don't know why, but it's like the term developer or builder has this like negative connotation around it. It's like they're bad people and they're bad guys and they're not doing good for the community, and it's not right and it's not good. It's you know, these municipalities and regions and communities need these types of people that are willing to invest millions and millions of dollars to grow a community, build housing, and you know, continue to develop the communities around us. So I think, you know, when I talk to different landowners and different builders like that, those are the significant factors that are at play. The property beside me is being developed right now, and it was a small little development, and it was a large lot, and the developer bought it, and he split into two different lots, and he's building two houses, and this took him we're going on 4.5 years to sever a lot and build two houses. It's like, how, why, right? This should be a process that should be very easy to do, have standards that are understood and easy to easy to go through. The pros, it's just we're not doing these guys justice right now, and it hasn't been good enough. And I think if we start to look at the municipal levels, that those are some of the things that I can see changing. But in terms of the HST from the other higher levels, those are great. Those are great.
All right, we are here on the Golfi Real Estate Show. Phil Golfi is with us today with the REMAX Golfi team. You can find out more about them at robgolfi.com. Phil's sticking around, and we'll be back next year on News Talk 610 CKTB. Welcome back to the Golfi Real Estate Show. I'm Steph Vivier, and Phil Golfi is with us today. And Phil, just before the break, we were talking a little bit about the election issues. This is a Snap Ontario election, and gosh, I'm just so impressed by all the volunteers and candidates that are out there, canvassing and doing their thing on the streets in this crazy weather that we've been getting. But we've been having the candidates in studio a lot, which I've really enjoyed, because we're just talking about the issues, talking about the things that matter to them. And one of the ones that actually has come up a few times, and with the parties not necessarily in power at this point, is the landlord-tenant board. And this is one I know I've talked about with you, and I've talked about with Phil on the show in the past about, just how big of a headache things are with that landlord-tenant board now for, people like yourselves and your clients who have an investment in real estate. Like, how bad is it right now? Give us a kind of snapshot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot better than what it was. So, for example, to get a court date prior about a year or two ago would be 6 to 8 months. So meaning that if somebody stopped paying their rent, you would then you serve the right form, and then they would continue not to pay, and they're still living in your house, and then the court date would be, like I said, 6 to 8 months away, and then you would stack up 8 months of non-payments and whatever problems you have or whatever dispute you were having, and it would create this, you're carrying it was terrible. So right now it's a lot better than what it was. From my understanding, you can get a court date in about 2 months, which is like I said, a lot better, but there's still underlying problems. Like it's a reason why people are afraid to become a landlord today is terms, the terms in dealing with the landlord-tenant board. We see these municipalities put out these restrictions under short-term rentals, and we've seen it in Niagara, we've seen it in other surrounding areas, that there's a lot of people that jumped into the short-term rental market because if any rental under 28 days is not considered, you wouldn't have to deal with the landlord-tenant board. But it was the long-term leases where they would have to get involved and resolve disputes and things of that nature. So we saw so many Airbnbs and so many short-term rentals pop up that it affected the long-term lease market, where those rental prices jumped because the inventory wasn't there, and then people were struggling to find places to go. So I always said, they're trying to regulate and govern short-term rentals, and I go, if you go take care of the landlord-tenant board, there would be a lot more people that would be willing to go buy properties, renovate them, and rent them out, and it would take care of the rental market. And it was so backwards in terms of the way that they were doing it. So that was the frustrating part for me. But the tenant has so much power in terms of not being able to pay rent or not taking care of properties or just doing wrongful to the home, and the landlord has lost control. So I think there needs to be, I'm not saying that the landlord should have all the power and should be able to make any decisions and kick anyone out, whatever. But there has to be more of a mutual agreement in agreeing when the lease terms are set, and if they're not followed, there has to be a quicker and faster way to be able to resolve any dispute. Waiting 3 months, that's 3 mortgage payments, that's utility bills, we're seeing people, having to sell their own personal properties because they have a tenant that's not paying, and now they're carrying 2 mortgages. How is that fair? Like there was these articles that came out that, there was landlords living in their car because of tenants that weren't paying their mortgage, and they couldn't get a court date for 8 months. Like that was absolutely insane and ridiculous. So we're still seeing the power struggle. There needs to be more. It just needs to be quicker. It just needs to be way quicker and way faster. If somebody doesn't pay, there should be something, there should be a resolution within 2 weeks and some payment. It's just got to be quicker. We should not be waiting 2 to 3 months for a court date because somebody living in this landlord, that's his, you know, he's made this significant investment. He's still trying to pay for whether it's his kids or his family or taking care of his family. Like, and then we have these tenants that just are unfaithful to this lease that they signed. So I would love to see if there was more money put into this. And it would result in more landlords and more people stepping up to want to invest in real estate and own more houses. And overall, there would be more rental properties available. So that's kind of my tiff with it. But I hated to see that. And I was one of them. I owned a long-term rental. I was afraid to even put tenants in my properties because I didn't want to deal with the landlord-tenant board. And then I jumped to the Airbnb, and then that became regulated, and I had to go get a license, and I had to go through all these things to get an Airbnb to be able to host, be an Airbnb host. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing that. And then so I went back to the long-term lease, but it's not, you know, it's better, but it's not great.
Well, and so what more could they do? Is it the timing of it all? Do you think that is just like, because people got used to it, right? Like tenants knew that they could not pay their rent and nothing was going to happen for a long time. So they kind of understood that they could game the system. Like this has gone on for years and years and years.
Yeah, I like I said, I think it's just a quicker response to an unfaithful tenant. If somebody's not paying, the gap between not paying and getting them evicted is far too long right now. And landlords are suffering. Like we live in a society where we're looking around and we're seeing our property tax rates jump in some areas, double figures, 8 to 10% jumps. We're seeing interest rate jumps. We're seeing the cost to run a house right now. If you're calling a plumber or electrician or getting your roof done or windows or even just, you know, general property maintenance, every single one of those prices have gone up. Every single one, where the cost of owning a property is so expensive. And then when you add somebody that's not paying on top of that, your savings, your overall mental health, your everything as a landlord it just drains you. It drains you to the point where you don't know where to look or where to go. And it feels like the landlord-tenant board is not there to help, but it's there to protect the tenant. And I just, you know, if we create a resolution where it's so much quicker to be able to, if there's an unfaithful tenant, to get them, you know, to figure out a payment plan or get them evicted, it has to be way quicker from non-payment to eviction. And that's the biggest problem. And that's my riff with it right now. And if we figured out the landlord-tenant board, we would have so many more people that would line up to go buy a house and rent it out. We need landlords. We need landlords more than ever. We're seeing all these grants right now for rental apartments, but if you're a family, you're not going to go into an apartment. So we're building all these rental apartments, but you still need the landlord, the ma and pa landlord that's going to go buy a detached house, that's going to rent it out. And now you can have, you know, you attract a family with a dog and 2 kids. We need those landlords. Those landlords are drying up right now, and the people that, you know, for whatever reason, maybe they don't want to own a house, or they don't want to, you know, they don't want the commitment of a long-term, whatever. They look around. They say either I'm going to live in an apartment, or I got to go buy something. There's not that in between stage for renters right now, and if they got the landlord-tenant board fixed, there would be. So that's you know, we whether it's more funding or different rules and regulations around that. We've seen it in other areas, you know, in other states and things like that, and how they run their, you know, landlord-tenant board. It's very efficient. We got to be better.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the pros and cons of when you're looking for a place. You know, we talked earlier about, of course, all the weather that we've gotten this week, which has been absolutely crazy. And sometimes when you're looking for a house, you can only find something that has on-street parking. So you have some of the pros and cons of that for us. I think we know what one of the big cons is after living through this week.
Yeah, I was talking to my dad this morning, and he brought up a funny story that he bought a back when he was first investing, and this was like the late 80s, and he bought a house on Chatham Street in Hamilton. And the house did not come with a parking spot. So what he did is he cut the curb and got a parking permit so he can pull in, and he paved the front lawn so he can pull on. But what that did is it made parking so difficult on that street that everyone's, jockeying for position, trying to find street parking. And then you have these, like unofficial rules of like, oh, well, the parking spot in front of my house is mine, and you can't park there, and then you get into these parking wars. So we're more than ever right now. It's like if when a snowstorm happens, it's like, where do people go and where do people park? We see it especially in the highly dense populated areas where there's a bunch of townhouses and condos. People don't know where to go. People are parking in visitors, or they're parking at different businesses and having to walk to their place through snow. So it's this, like I said, this is going to make some people rethink their situation and put an emphasis on parking. We've seen places come up and there's no parking available. It's so important. We live in such a commuter society. And it feels like everyone today is, has cars or commutes somewhere, and, we rely on the people movers a lot and transit a lot, but we still need parking, and it's going to create some parking wars. So be kind, be nice to your neighbors, and and make sure you have a parking spot saved.
Yeah, I was thinking about all of those cars that got buried by the snowplows that went by, right? It's like, even now you can still see, it's like, I think there's a car under there.
I know. I was at the gym earlier this morning, and there was a few cars that were left over in the parking lot, and the plow had nowhere to go. So unfortunately, the only thing he can do to create, to plow the parking lot was to just kind of plow around the car. But unfortunately, it created this like 8 to 9 foot mound that completely covered the car. And then all of a sudden, if that freezes, it's going to be there for a week or so. Now this person doesn't have access to their car. So we're going to see that where the plows on the street are going to push some snow to the side. It's going to plow some cars in, unfortunately. But it's you got to keep the roads clear.
Yeah, we got to do what we got to do. And, those snowplow drivers, I think they get a lot of heck, especially in weeks like this when, we're all impatient and we want our roads to be done first. But let's remember, these people are out in the middle of the night and they're doing their job. So I give them a lot of kudos. Yeah,
me too. They're trying their best. That's all we can ask for. So, it's for me, we need the plows, we need the roads clear, but we need the salt on the sidewalk and the steps, because when people, the slip and falls, and especially when you get that little layer of, snow, the fresh snowfall, and there's ice underneath, it makes for some hilarious videos of people slipping and falling. And those will make it, their way online. And especially if it happens at, with one of your friends or family or whatever, they always make their way around. But be careful. Make sure you wear the proper footwear. I've put my dress shoes away. I'm showing up in these big boots, so I'm not slipping and falling. But we, salt your steps, salt your pathways. A slip and fall is not fun.
Great reminders there, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us today. Always appreciate a time to talk to you on the Golfi Real Estate Show. If you want to find out more about the Golfi team, it's robgolfi.com, 905-641-0308, the #1 REMAX team in Canada. You have been listening to the Golfi Real Estate Show here on News Talk 610 CKTB.